Hey, what's up, CTA family? Welcome to the Compete Mentality Podcast, where we will host basketball coaches, players, and trainers from all around the state of Indiana, country, and world. The mission of the Compete Mentality Podcast is to help you guys compete. Our definition of competing is doing what God is calling you to do, even when it's hard. The Compete Mentality Podcast is sponsored by the Lewis Jackson and Jordan Delks Basketball School. Be looking to our social media for more information on the Lewis Jackson and Jordan Delks basketball schools. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you guys, Bob Peters. Bob, thanks for coming on the podcast here today, man.
JD, thanks for having me. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. And Bob was one of my players that I had the absolute privilege of coaching at Indiana Wesleyan for 2 years. And we were able to win a national championship in 2016 together. And Bob was a 2,000-point scorer and was just a really, really fun player to coach and really defined what it meant to compete on the floor. So, Bob, I'm really excited to dive in with you today, man.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be awesome, and I'm excited as well. Let's bring it on.
For sure. And Bob, just to kind of get us started here, we're really we're trainers. We love helping people grow on the court, in fitness and life, but we're also big time foodies, man. Like, we love our food. We love our cheat meals. We love trying new restaurants and places. And I just want to hear, like, what's your go-to restaurant right now and describe what you're ordering.
Sure. So I'm a foodie as well. My wife gets mad at me because, I'm always eating greasy food, or I want that, that hole in the wall spot, right? I don't want to have to, go to the chain Chili's restaurant or anything like that. So right now, although I did just say I don't like to go to the chain, if I'm going for a cheap meal, I'm going Chipotle, but that's not what you want to hear. What you want to hear is if you're in Indy, you got to go to Ale Emporium. Ale Emporium is my go-to right now for, wings, pizza.
Hermanaki wings, bro.
You got Hermanaki is incredible. Yep. Also, I've actually tried a new wing flavor there. It's the teriyaki garlic. Okay. You get them grilled and then you get them double tossed. So it's a mumbo jumbo, but I earned the approval from Ben Carlson. So Ben Carlson was one of my guys. He loved food too. On our team. He graduated a year after me, and he texted me. He's at Ale Emporium, said, "Hey, I need one thing that you're gonna get." And I told him that exact order: garlic teriyaki, double toss, grilled. And he said phenomenal. So it got my stamp of approval. It got Beezy's, is what we call them, Beezy's stamp of approval. So if you're going to Ale Emporium
inspection, I'm definitely gonna try. I normally get the Hermanaki. So
Hermanaki is good. That's my second go-to, but I can't get off the teriyaki garlic right now. So,
bro, you're making my mouth water right now, man. Like, that's one of my favorite places as well. That's a good call, bro. So, Bobby, like, give us a little background, just kind of how you got to where you are today, man.
Yeah. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio, in a small town called Cuyahoga Falls. I actually don't claim Cuyahoga Falls as much as I claim Akron for LeBron. I always say I'm straight from the city of LeBron, just another kid from Akron.
That's right.
But I grew up both a loving mom, a loving dad, and two younger brothers. So I'm the oldest. But my dad was actually my basketball coach in high school and growing up. And a funny story that I actually told my dad for the first time was right before we played St. Francis in the national championship game. I'm thinking back through my life, thinking back of all the people who've poured into me my junior year, and just like, man, how did I get to where I was today? And I can just remember a clear moment, like my dad kind of sneaking into my room as I'm a kindergartner. We lived in Massillon at that time, which is really a small town in Ohio still. He was assistant coach there, and he taps me on the shoulder, wakes me up. He said, "Hey, you want to go to basketball camp tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go to basketball camp." And in my mind, I have this vision, I'm sitting around a campfire with, other people just talking about basketball and roasting marshmallows. And like, that was what camp came into my mind. And I get there, I'm like, where's the campfire? Where's all the tents? That's what I envisioned camp was. But, that moment was, when my dad, woke me up and was just like wanting to take me and, built that fire and desire in my heart for basketball. That's something that I'll never forget, that little moment, even though I was so young. So that's kind of where it all started, as me as a young little basketball player, my dad and coaching me and always wanting me to be around the game and going out in the driveway. So we did that all throughout high school. And my mom, she was a great supporter. Her and my dad actually met in high school. My dad played basketball. She was a cheerleader. So they had that little, high school relationship going on. They ended up getting married, but all that to say is I've had a great support system growing up, and I had the ability to just beat up on my brothers, and my brothers try to beat up on me, growing up. And we just had that ultra competitive family. But at the end of the day, we loved each other so much. So, I'm going through high school and I'm playing ball, and I'm loving it. It's my life. I'm writing all the verses on my shoes. I'm, posting about it on Twitter. I was a little bit arrogant back then, still probably am a little bit, but, I'm like, man, I'm loving this. I want to play in college. I want to do this for as long as I can. So my dad really poured it into me my freshman year. He's waking me up 6 a.m. every morning. And I was like, man, this sucks. But, I don't think any other little freshman is doing this in my school, and probably not in my area, just putting in the work and shooting just off the dribble, shooting standstill, shooting, coming off screens, just doing everything that we were doing together. And that was a really special summer because it was just my dad and I. And I ended up graduating. We'll go into the recruiting process here in a little bit. But I got a job, or I got the opportunity to go play at Indiana Wesleyan for Coach T, Coach Clark, Coach Whaley, and awesome experience. I mean, almost speechless experience about what I got to experience there. Great from a school standpoint, awesome from a basketball standpoint, even better from a relationship standpoint, because I met some of my friends, brothers who I still talk to today, but end of the day, also met my wife, and so she was running track, and that might have been the best gift that I got out of it was her and the relationship that we started building at Indiana Wesleyan, and then the relationship that we have today. And so graduate, I'm thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? Because I thought I might want to play professionally overseas, but just got to the point where I was just satisfied with my career. Didn't want to do anything else. Was, honestly, just a little bit burnt out with ball and how much I gave to the sport for the last 20 years, it felt like, and was ready to get on to the workforce. And so I interviewed with a few companies, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but ended up getting hired by Charles Schwab in Indy. And, my wife was going to get her master's at Indiana Wesleyan still. And it just kind of all came together as where I'm at now. Still with Schwab. Wife is working downtown as a mental health therapist, doing amazing work for Eskenazi. And we're just building our own little home right now in Indy. So we're loving life, and we're doing really well.
Man, that's so cool, Bobby. And I can't wait to dive into a lot of that story here in the rest of this podcast. And I want to go to the point in time you were talking about your recruiting. And I train a lot of hoopers right now that are going through the recruiting process, and it's a struggle, man. Like it's stressful. It's really hard, going through the recruiting process at times. So like, just give us like the ins and outs of your recruiting process and how you got to decide to go play for Indiana Wesleyan.
Oh yeah, for sure. I couldn't relate anymore to being stressful and wanting to find out, where you're going to go, who wants to have me play for them. Am I going to fit in? What role am I going to have? Because, I was a high schooler and I was so caught up in Division I, right? I didn't want anything else in my life. And it was the dream from when I was a little boy. I'm playing D1 somewhere. I don't care where D1 is, but I want to play Division I. And so I'm looking at any school, every school, trying to get recruited. And to be honest, no one was biting. I had local Akron University every once in a while, let me come play at their open gym on Thursday nights. And that was awesome, right? They're MAC school. Same with Ball State for people in Indiana. That's about the size that they were. And so, I'm going through this recruiting process mindset on Division 1, and I'm just casting a fishing pole and nothing's biting, right? And that was discouraging. And so my dad, was just like, why don't we look at some NAIA schools, some Division 2 schools around the area? And I'm like, no, like I'm better than that, and like I said, I was a little arrogant in high school. I thought I was Division 1 material. And so I'm going through that process and really wrestling, first with my humility, second with, am I actually as good as I think I am? And so my dad had a little highlight tape for me that he just sent out, just basically mass sent it out to Crossroads League, sent it out to Division 2 schools around Ohio, just, around the area within a 5-6 hour radius of where we lived, and just said, let's see what happens. And so it lands in the hands of Coach T, Coach Clark, Coach Whaley. I'm not actually sure which one reached out to me first, but they did. And so I was like, you know what, let's just go. I told my dad, let's go. We'll see what happens. See, if I like it or not. I go on a visit, play an open gym, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cool. It's got a different feel than what I've ever experienced before in this recruiting process. I mean, this was the first time that someone showed interest in me.
Right.
And I was like, let's just do it. So we go there. And for those of you who followed Wesleyan for a while, I'm staying with Jordan Widener, who talk about compete, right? He's at Grace now, assistant coach, doing amazing work.
Coach White, I'm just talking to this. I'm getting you on here too, bro.
Oh, you need to talk about eating nails for breakfast. That guy was crazy.
Yes.
But he really kind of swayed my decision as I'm walking. Me and him are just walking back after a workout. We're talking, and I'm asking him, like, would you choose Wesleyan again? And he's like, absolutely 100%. Like, I wouldn't choose Duke over Wesleyan. And I was just like, dang. Like, that really stuck with me. And he probably doesn't even remember saying that to me, but that's one of those things where I was like, this guy would rather be here than, playing in the ACC. This guy would rather be here than, tipping it off in the Big Ten. And so that kind of sealed the deal for me, even though it was my first college visit. And so my dad and my mom, they were with me. They got the whole tour. Funny story. My mom actually said, you guys do Silent Night, right? And the guys were like, that's from Taylor. That's our rival. Like, we don't do that. And so my mom was like, oh, I thought I ruined it for you. But, I'm leaving, and I'm not the type of guy to make a decision right then and there. But I told my dad, I said, it's going to be hard for me to find an experience, that Indiana Wesleyan could potentially offer me elsewhere at that level. And I just wrestled with that for a while, and was just like, man, I think that's the spot for me. So I called Coach T. I mean, through conversations back and forth, we're basically saying, I think I'm going to commit. What can I come on another visit? Can I do, can we do anything else to get more exposure to me, to your program? And they had a summer camp. I don't think it was Super Hoops, but it was where my high school team, they invited my high school team to play in a summer shootout. And so they basically saw me show out there, saw that I was, gritty, competed really hard, on the court, off the court. And the end of the story is they offered me a scholarship that was just perfectly in line with what my parents needed financially. And that was icing on the cake. Like, looking back, the Lord just came and just plopped Indiana Wesleyan right in front of me on a silver platter and just said, all you have to do is say yes, and I basically did. I basically said, yes, this is the place I want to be. And it's funny because hardly any other schools in the Crossroads League reached out. They just overlooked me. They didn't want me. I don't know why, I know why. The Lord wanted me at Wesleyan,
That's exactly why.
That's exactly why. But you don't know that, junior in high school, you want people to want you, and the thing was is at that point, once I committed to Wesleyan, I didn't care who wanted me anymore.
Right.
I just said, that's where I'm at. And we're going to make something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And funny thing is, I won't name colleges, but I've had people come up to me as I was a freshman and sophomore, like, man, we missed out on you. And I was like, yeah, you did,
Exactly.
but I'm not mad. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
That's right.
So yeah, if you're going through the recruiting process right now, it's never a more stressful time for an athlete. But it will work out. And if you place your trust in whoever, the Lord ultimately, but place your trust in the Lord, place your trust in your parents, your coaches, who all have your best interest at mind. They're going to rally around you and support you, and you're going to end up at the best spot possible for you. So that's what happened to me. And like I said, it couldn't have worked out better. It really couldn't have.
That is such a powerful testimony right there, listeners. And this all started from emailing a highlight video out. And sometimes in life, guys, if you want something, you just got to go get it. And I love that testimony of BP. He knew what he wanted to do, and he competed. He did what God called him to do, even when it's hard. When nobody was knocking on the door, he just kept the vision. He just kept the faith. He just kept believing in himself. He kept believing in his Lord and Savior's Jesus Christ's plan for his life. And that is what it means to compete. And it's just so cool how it works out perfectly that no one in the league, but the very best team in the league, wants this guy. And he goes and scores over 2,000 points and wins a national championship. And that's just such an inspiring story for us. And Bobby, I want to know two things that you love playing college basketball. Just describe. So I train a lot of hoopers that just would, their dreams to play college basketball, just like your dream was as a little boy and hooper growing up. And just describe to them, what are two things you love playing about college basketball?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this on the way home today from work, again, just replaying moments in my mind. And, NAIA Division II, it might not seem big to just the casual basketball fan, but I'll start with this. There's no better basketball than small college basketball. I'd choose watching a small college basketball game over a Division I game, hands down. I just think, and that's not saying that the players are better or not. I just think the basketball overall, just as a fan and an advocate of the game, is just better at this level. And so for the casual fan, NAIA games might not seem like a big deal, but man, we had some big time games when I was going through Wesleyan. I mean, there were countless moments throughout my whole career where you're going into a game and it's like, this is a must win situation. I mean, my freshman year, we just got hot at the right time and played in just so many back-to-back big games to win a national championship. My junior year, same thing. I mean, we're going into a national championship game on ESPN3. I mean, the biggest stage possible. And we get to play in big time moments, and there's big time moments everywhere in college basketball, whether you're Division III, Division II, NAIA, Division I. But those moments, lacing up, just knowing this is the biggest game maybe of my career, is something that I still can't get over and I can't forget about. That's probably one of the main things that I miss about ball is, when I go back and watch Wesleyan, in a conference championship game, or when I watch them, knowing they're taking off to Kansas City for the tournament, the feeling and the emotion, behind big moments, big games is something that I'll miss for forever. So I love small college basketball. I love big games, big moments, and knowing that those are big moments to those guys. And that whether it's ESPN3, whether it's, on the school's website, I mean, people are starting to follow small college basketball more and more, I think. And just living for those big moments and living for that was awesome. Now, if you ask me to go back and play in a big moment game right now, 100%. But but thinking back now that my body's a little bit older, everything like that, going back in those 5:30 practices, those moments were awesome in the time, but it's like, man, I don't know if my body can take that anymore.
Can you still give Grant Evans buckets right now?
Yeah, I'll never not be able to give Grant Evans buckets.
I love it.
Funny story about that, is so my sophomore year, actually, Grant Evans is coming in. Coaches are recruiting him. He's looking to transfer closer to home. He was at Wright State. And Grant Evans is my guy. I told the story at my wedding because he was in my wedding. And I'm like, man, they're trying to recruit over me. Again, going back to, finding my self-worth.
Yep.
But I was like, man, they're trying to bring somebody in to play above me, like this Grant Evans dude. Who is this guy? And he comes in for an open gym, and, we're going back and forth. And I was like, yeah, he's pretty good. So I'm still a little on edge about it. And then I saw him get into a defensive drill, first week of practice. And I was like, no way, this guy's not playing over me. So I just tell Grant, dude can't play defense for his life. That's why he won't ever be able to beat me. But no, I think it's funny because he came in, at that moment, I was like, this guy's not going to be my friend. I'm going to be competing for a spot. Comes out one of my best friends at Wesleyan. So just funny times.
Absolutely. And it's truly a brotherhood at IWU. And that's the best thing I loved about my time at Indiana Wesleyan. I mean, you look at, Duke's like the brotherhood or like whatever like that. Like at Indiana Wesleyan, it truly is a brotherhood. And it's those relationships, they just last forever. So Bob, like when you were playing ball, like we all said you had this Bob swag about yourself. And like Bob just played the game differently, ladies and gentlemen. Like kind of like he said at the beginning, he played gritty. He played with the chip on his shoulder just because like no one recruited him. And he constantly and I think that's just what really propelled him to be such a great player is just like, he just always had this chip on his shoulder. He didn't care what anybody thought about him. And so like back when this is like, man, what year was your freshman year? 2014.
Yeah. 13, 14.
So like, I remember this, I coached you in 2015 and 16. And so like, I remember watching in 2014 when you guys were in the national tournament, in that tournament run you guys had. And I'm watching this freshman start and play. And I'm like, man, who is this kid out there? Like going out balling on everybody with a mullet. And like, I'm like, man, this guy, and like his shorts. And this was when like short shorts weren't in. Like Bob brought the short shorts in. Like he had short shorts on, a mullet, and greenies on, man. Like he had these socks that he always loved to wear that he called greenies. And like, he just had this specific swag about him. And so Bob, tell us about the Bob swag. Like how did that come to be in your game? And how did that, just tell us about what that meant to you as a player?
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned. I think Coach Whaley actually coined that term.
Yep.
And I don't know where he thought it was swag or not. I mean, some people thought I was just goofy. I mean, I came back, we went to a trip in New Zealand and I wore zebra pants back. I mean, these zebra joggers, and joggers kind of came in a little bit later, but this ugly looking things. I mean, I look back and look at the video and some pictures, and I'm like, what the heck was I wearing?
But like he would have fit, like this is before the NBA, like all the NBA interviews, like it's like, what are these guys wearing? Like Bob was wearing it like 10 years ago, man.
Yeah. So I think I've always been pretty confident in who I am, right? Confident in my game, confident in just who I am as a person. And so I think my freshman and sophomore year, it really was just running off of who I thought I was and who I wanted to be, right? And eventually that's going to run out, which I found out. I mean, you can't run completely off of your power. And I believe it was either my sophomore or junior year, Coach T, studied other teams. And the one thing that he found was that the teams with the best mentality were the ones who were the most fearless. And so I kind of just bought into that. And the where I found it was, ultimately, if I played a good game or not, my worth wasn't going to change in the eyes of the Lord. Right. The Lord had accepted me, had already died for me. He had basically paid the price for me in all eternity manner. Right. So
Amen.
The game that I played today, the game that I played tomorrow, if I had a bad practice, had no impact on my eternal fate. As long as I believed in him, as long as I trusted in him. And ultimately that overflows into your personal life, and that overflows into your basketball game. I mean, if you find your worth in the game of basketball, then you can't play it fearlessly. You can't play it with that confidence and that swagger. But if you find your confidence, find your identity in something that's entirely separated from the game and entirely focused on eternal matters, I mean, you're going to be able to play the game with freedom, and you're ultimately going to be playing your best basketball. So like I said, I really grabbed that phrase fearless and just ran with it in my mind. Like I said, I didn't have that my freshman and sophomore year because we didn't talk about it yet at Wesleyan. Right. And there was no substance to it for me.
Right.
So it was really just running off my own fumes, which, like I said, eventually will run out. Eventually you're going to get caught up in, did I play well? And what does that mean in coach's eyes? What does that mean in my girlfriend's eyes? What does that mean in my friend's eyes? And that's leading down a path that's ultimately going to burn you out. That's ultimately going to ruin your love for the game. But again, if you could find it in Christ and find it in something that's separated from the game, again, hopefully it's Christ, then you can play your best basketball, and you can play it with that swagger that I suppose they called it back in the day. But that's where it stemmed from, ultimately my junior and senior year.
That's so cool. And if looking back and you just talking about playing fearlessly, and that's what Indiana Wesleyan prides themselves in, is being selfless and fearless. And when I look, if I can think of just one of the most fearless players, it's Bob Peters, and hit game winner after game winner, just ice in his veins, and ultimately, like I said, wasn't worried about the opinions of man. And I think that's an incredible quality to have. So Bobby, kind of as we wrap up here, competing is doing what God calls you to do, even when it's hard. And we're a faith-based organization at Compete Training Academy, and I just want to hear what God is teaching you right now in this moment of life you are in.
Yeah, for sure. So this is entirely separated from basketball now that I'm out of the game, right? But JD, you mentioned just the brotherhood that we had at Wesleyan, and the one thing that over the last year, what I'm hoping that I am proving to people and proving to, the people that are ultimately super important in my life, is that the value that they give to me in my life. And so the way that I'm trying to compete, the way that I'm trying to focus on others, is by one, I've started a list of people that if I come in contact with them, if I have lunch with somebody, my old teammates, if I have a lunch with an old coach, or someone texts me with something, I want to be as intentional as possible. And the way that looks for me right now is, I don't want to say names, but if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm going through a tough situation, I'm going to be intentional. I'm writing their name down. I have a whiteboard in my office that I'm writing people's names down, so that every time I walk into my office, I see that list of people. And that's my prayer list right now, right? You got 4 people up there, 5 people up there right now that have maybe not reached out for the sole purpose of telling me something's going on in their life, but have, through our conversations and through that brotherhood that we've created, just dropped something on me that just went through conversation. And so, the way I'm competing is just intentionality in relationships, intentionality in my prayer life, for those people that might not even know that they're on my list right now, and hopefully see fruits of the labor that, I'm praying for them, or eventually I'm able to speak truth into their life, that hey, I've been praying for you over the last X amount of months or X amount. And, this is what I see in your life, is hopefully what I'm going to see come through it. Another way that kind of resembles itself is my wife and I, about a year ago, basically just said, we want to be there for people in big moments in their life, right? I don't care if I have to drive across the country. If someone in my life who's important to me is having a big moment, graduating college, getting married, something else big, having a baby that they want me to be a part of, I'm going to be intentional about going and being present for people in big moments of their life and celebrating them in those moments. So not related to basketball at all, but that's something that's like been on my heart, been on my walk, something I want to do going forward. Is just one, intentionality and prayer for people that don't even know that I'm praying for them. Two is being there for people in the biggest moments of their life, just like a game of basketball, right? I live for the big moments in basketball. I want to live for people's big moments in their life so that they know, I'm present, I'm there, I'm here for you. So that's really where I'm at right now.
BP, you're preaching, man. That's a good word. And Compete Training Academy family, like that's a huge takeaway. I can't wait to go back and listen to the rest of this again and just glean all the wisdom that Bobby shared tonight. And Bob, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. There's just so much good stuff, and that really means a lot. That last thing you said about being there for people in their big moments, and that's what competing is. It's doing what God calls you to do, even when it's hard. And I just really appreciate the time you took to join us tonight, man.
JD, thanks. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Compete Training Academy. Always remember that competing is doing what God is calling you to do, even when it's hard.